Okay, Shalom Aleichem everyone. So today we begin a new series called HaSefer, Hashkofa, Halocha, and Hadracha, which is a series on Jewish books. And we're going to share with you some basic information that every single person could learn easily about Jewish books. Books of all languages, some the most important and basic texts, and some more advanced, and of course even the idea of collecting Jewish books that have both a practical use and of course also a more financial value. So over the next few episodes, we'll share with you some basic things which to some of you may seem very elementary, although for many of you it may be something very new and interesting. And amongst these series of episodes, we'll also share with you some interesting things that you may not have known before. Today we're going to begin in episode 1 with the Chumash. Now, what is the Chumash? The Chumash is the book of the five books of Moses. And this, of course, is the most #1 printed book in all of history. The Holy Torah. And if you open up, what is the Chumash right here? The classic Chumash, Chamishe Chumshei Torah. You open up to the inside page, and what do you got? Chumash, Chamishe Chumshei Torah. In one volume, you have Bereshis, and you have Shemos, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. Also, those which go by English names, as in Genesis, etc. And this is the easiest thing. If you're a person that reads Hebrew, and you just want to come to synagogue Shabbat morning, or Mondays and Thursdays, and you want to hear the reading of the Torah, this is pretty much all you need. However, beyond that, which is, of course, the Chumash with Rashi, the #1 primary commentary on the Chumash, on the Torah, you have other Chumashim. For example, let's say I want to go outside of the Chumash itself, the 5 books of Moses. I want to go to the books of the prophets, right? So then you have something called a Tanakh, not a Chumash. The Chumash is just the 5 books of Moses, but you have a Tanakh. What is a Tanakh? A Tanakh is both the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. And a volume like this has simply the entire Tanakh, plain, simple Hebrew-English translation. No commentaries. And this comes in various shapes and sizes, various publishing houses. Of course, this is the Art Scroll version. They do a fantastic job. It's a bestseller also. And it's a fantastic book that every Jewish home should have, a Tanakh. You want to know the book of Joshua, the book of Samuel, the book of Psalms. This is the book you go to. So if you have a Chumash and you have a Tanakh, you pretty much got it all. Now what happens? You'll also want to have commentaries. You want to understand the Torah. You want to understand the Tanakh. You want to understand Rashi. So what do you go out and you get? You go out and you get a Mikros Gedolos. A Mikros Gedolos was printed a few hundred years ago the first time. And printing houses, some rabbis, some business people got together and they decided, let's bring together some of the most common commentaries and let's put it into a volume where you could open up and see the Chumash, the Torah portion, and underneath it and next to it also commentaries. Today there are multiple versions of the Mikros Gedolos. And in each version, you have different commentaries, anywhere from 5 to 50, as some of the Mikros Gedolos say. And in it, you find some of the most common commentaries, which we'll speak about in another episode. So if you have this Mikros Gedolos, so that's the Chumash with the commentaries, then you have a Tanakh, which is just the entire Torah itself, and then the Chumash, you pretty much have it all. However, you're probably wondering then, what's the rest of this? Well, what happens if you don't read Hebrew or you don't read English? For example, in our congregation, we have many Russian-speaking Jews. So you're going to want to go for the Russian translation. Now this one doesn't have commentaries. This is just the Chumash itself, the Torah, with with Russian translation. And that's pretty much it. So now you're going to want to have another translation of another language. You need another book. Not every book could have every language. It's quite simple. Now, this itself comes in various versions. This is just 2. But there are many, many versions, even in the Hebrew to Russian language. And this one has something a little extra. First of all, the format is very pleasant in this book. It's a little hard to see. And at the bottom, you have a little running commentary. So that's very, very nice. This is our favorite here in our shul. The Russian-speaking Jews love to use this Chumash, very common. And we have many copies of this. So again, that's another option. So you don't necessarily need both, but they're both an option. Moving forward. Now, even in the English translation itself, as I showed you before in the Chumash and in Tanakh, There are many English translations, whether it's the early translations of the 1900s here in America, or whether it's the later translations, or whether it's the Matsuda translation or the Sansino translation, and then the Aryeh Kaplan translation. And this was very, very famous back in the 80s and the 90s. And the Aryeh Kaplan translation, first of all, was a very beautiful translation. It was also done in Russian because a lot of people, first of all, respected Rabbi Kaplan. And he wrote many books, and he was a tremendous author, and his translation was very, very well done and very well respected. Today, realistically speaking, it's not so much used as much as it used to be, or it's not as commonly used as it used to be, but it's still also known as a very, very reputable, very respectful translation, the Aryeh Kaplan Torah Anthology. Now, here is what became, realistically speaking, one of the most common chumashim in the world. And this is basically, like we mentioned before, it's the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses. But inside, you also have Rashi and also a running commentary. And this book also, the Stone Edition, is very well bound, so it's very strong, so it lasts many, many years. And it's the whole book in one volume with the English, with the running commentary. And so this became the standard shul chumash. A lot of people like this. So you're starting to see, look how many chumashim. How many chumashim do I need, right? Rabbi, seriously, I don't have enough space in my home. If that's the case, maybe you don't need all of these. You just need one that works best for you. But maybe you have friends, maybe you have families, maybe you're running a synagogue or a library, and you need all these because you want to be able to serve the variety of people. Then, of course, there is the most recent publication by the Kahas publication, the Chabad Publishing House. This is the Rebbe's Chumash. And this, again, also comes in 5 volumes and in 1 volume. And it's Hebrew and English. And it also has Rashi in it and also running commentary based on the teachings of the Rebbe. And this, of course, is very, very beautiful. First of all, the layout is fantastic. The commentary, of course, is fantastic. And this is very worthy. Now, the thing is, even if you have all those other chumashim, you don't have the commentary of the Rebbe in it. Even the Mikros Kedolos doesn't have it, not yet. So if you want to have the commentary of the Rebbe, you're going to need this chumash. Now, essentially, you don't need the chumash to get the running commentary of the Rebbe. But realistically speaking, this is where it's found. They took the chumash, the same Hebrew words as the other ones, and in it they put the commentaries of the Rebbe. And that's how you get so many books. Now, I just want to conclude this episode with 2 of my favorites. Here at Anshe Shalom Chabad, we have a Gutnick library in honor of Rabbi Shner Chaim HaKohen Gutnick, Zecher Tzadik Levrocha, the chief rabbi of Australia. And his nephew made a publishing house many years ago called the Gutnick Publishing House, Kol Menachem. And they published this. This became also very famous in many Chabadistas around the world. It's called the Gutnick Chumash. And this is fantastic for 3 reasons. It's actually the one we use here at our Chabad Center. Number 1, because it's a beautiful layout. It's off-white paper, so it's very plausible to the eye. It has Rashi, it has the commentary, some of the running commentary, and it has a lot of the explanations from the Rebbe. And it's done fantastic by Rabbi Chaim Miller. Fantastic, fantastic work. When this came out, this was everyone loved it until today. Many, many synagogues use this chumash. This is, what could I say, one of my favorites. And finally, when it comes to book collecting, that was a lot of chumashim. You know, if you're a person that's a little bit deeper or maybe sentimental, this is another example of the Makrois Kedolos. This I received from a neighbor, a very special neighbor, Moshe Shlomo Zaborowski. He was the chairman of Yad Vashem, and he was our neighbor for many years. He helped many, many Jews after the Holocaust come to Israel and to be saved from the Nazis and to recover from the Holocaust. And when he passed away, he left the library to our family. And Baruch Hashem, I merited to receive the chumash that he had in his home, the Mikros Kedolos. And so I personally use this every Shabbos because it's not only the chumash, as we mentioned, it's not only all the wonderful commentaries, which is a fantastic collection of Mikros Kedolos chumash, which has in it many of the commentaries, it also has sentimental value. I'm using a chumash that came from such a holy person's home, such a special person's home. And that's where book collecting begins. It's not just about practicality. It's not just about language or usage. It's also about sentimentality. On that note, I want to wish you a beautiful, beautiful week, and thank you for joining us.